Happy Tuesday, everybody. We're back with another sit and talk and live here on YouTube. Happy spring, everybody. Our weather here is amazing again. I think it's going to get up to about 70 degrees. So have lots of things to share with you today. So I hope that you join us, or if not, I hope that you take the time to watch it after the live and really kind of dig into some of the nuggets. So a couple of things that I'm going to do today and unpack. The first one was, thank you. First of all, thank you so much to everybody that sent in their questions. I have a ton of them, and I'm going to go through a couple of them today, and we're definitely going to brainstorm together. And I also have some things to share with you that I recommend to my clients to do in the month of April, kind of like a homework to-do list checklist. And then we're also going to talk about retirement, which is the main focus for us. So I today first want to start out with a quiz. So grab your notebook, grab a pencil or a pen, and I'm going to ask you some questions, and then we're going to dig deeper into some of them. So I found this really fun questionnaire, and I want to ask you these questions to see what you think about them. All right, you ready? So the first question is, if you retired at the age of 65, your retirement will last about 20 years on average. And what I want you to do is think about this and then answer in your notebook whether it's a true or a false statement. So I'm going to give you like 5 seconds to think about. So if you retired at the age 65, your retirement will last about 20 years on average. Hi, Cynthia. Thanks so much for coming back. So if you answer true, you are correct. So according to the U.S. Census Bureau data, the average life expectancy for an American at the age of 65 is roughly an additional 20 years for a man and about 21 years for a woman. Of course, there is no guarantee that if you're going to live that long, but in budgeting and saving for retirement, that is something that you should definitely take into consideration. And one of the things that I'm also working on is a separate video to talk about how women should approach planning for retirement, because as you can see, based on the actual census data, women live longer than men. So there are some other additional things that we as ladies should consider. So just keep that in mind, kind of put like a little star next to this. All right, you ready for question number 2? It doesn't matter how old you are when you claim your Social Security retirement benefits. You are going to get the same amount no matter your age. What do you think? The answer to question number 2 is false. The longer you wait to start collecting retirement benefits after you become eligible at the age of 62, the higher the amount is going to be you're going to receive. For each month you delay up to the age of 70, which is when you can claim the max amount of your benefit, your monthly payment does go up. If you wait until age 70, your benefit will be about 77% bigger than if you have claimed it at 62. And what I can tell you is that that's a big question, a big uncertainty for a lot of you if you are planning your retirement versus when you are already there. The big question is, should you go ahead and take Social Security as quickly as possible? Should you wait until your normal retirement age? Do you want to push it off? And there's a lot of things that play into it. And we talked a little bit about that, if you should retire sooner than later, actually in some of the other videos that I have done. So now, the longer you wait, the higher your amount is going to go up. Question number 3. You need to save at least $1 million to ensure a secure retirement. What do you think? The answer to that question is a false. You do not need $1 million which to many people, when you really think about that number, that looks like just an impossible mountain to conquer. Okay. And here's the maybe the different explanation to this. How big your nest egg needs to be depends on quite a few different factors. And every one of you is different, whether what your personality is like, what you have saved so far, what are you planning on doing in retirement. It really does matter on a million different things. So where are you living? Where are you planning to live? If you're planning on moving, what kind of lifestyle you have in mind, all of those things play into that big picture. So I want you to think about planning as a pie. You have a bunch of different things, and although when we cut the pieces, if they look all the same and they all look equal, most of the time when you're planning for retirement, your pieces are not going to be equal. They're all going to be different shapes, and they're going to have different weight because there are more things that matter to you than other things. Okay, so of course there is no magic number, and there's nothing wrong with having ambitious plans, but I don't want you to get hung up on when you are looking at the news or reading some articles, when you are Googling for information, where a lot of people, in fact, I was just looking at another CNBC article. A lot of Americans think that in today's age, after COVID time, that people are going to need $1.6 million, I think, to live on, to just make it work. And you can't lump everybody together, and you can't take an average because everybody's different. So just kind of carefully consider all of your facts, and you can look and see what other people are doing. But remember, you are focusing on you. You are your own advocate, and how you plan is what matters the most. And then that's how you figure out that amount. So it could be $1 million, it could be a lot less, or maybe more, depending on your circumstances. The next question. It is a good idea to reduce debt before you retire. What do you think? I think all of you will agree that the answer to that is true. Yes, absolutely. That's one of the things that we talk about a lot with our clients is, for example, if you still have a mortgage on your house, if you've refinanced recently, is you extend the life of the loan. A lot of the times people don't realize when they refinance, they may reduce their monthly payment because of the lower rate, but do they just extend the life of their loan? So we talk about it, and we make plans about it as well. So we talk about potentially co-signing for college loans with your kids. It could be paying off your car, mortgage, and credit card debt. Don't forget about that. I think people don't think of that as a big deal, yet it is, because the statistics that I know right now is over 49% of Americans carry credit card debt. That's half of the population. And where people are upset about mortgage rates being between 6 and 7% right now, do you know what the average credit card interest rate is right now? Like if you were to actually carry a balance on the credit card, do you know what that percentage would be? It's between 20 and 25%. So we always suggest you tackle the credit card debt as part of your overall strategic plan to get rid of as much debt as possible if you are still in that pre-retirement stage and you're making your plans. Next question. You can't collect Social Security retirement benefits until if you are still working. What do you think? The answer to that is false. You can still continue working and still receive benefits. You just need to get a little bit more familiar about what Social Security does and how it all works. It all depends on your age. So if you're younger than your full retirement age, which is between 66 and 67, depending on your year of birth, and you earn more than a certain amount, Social Security is temporarily going to withhold a portion of your monthly benefits because you're still working. Once you pass your full retirement age, these earnings test so to speak, kind of goes away, and Social Security increases your benefit to make up for the past withholding. So once you reach your retirement age and you start collecting, you can work as much as you want or as little as you want. Next question. You do not need to worry about healthcare costs in retirement because Medicare is going to cover it. What do you think? Well, the answer to that is actually false. Medicare does provide crucial coverage to most Americans. However, it's not free. And as with private insurance, there are monthly premiums out of pocket. So right now, this year, they're $174.70. And it's probably it's going to go up again next year because of the cost of living adjustments. There are deductibles. There are out-of-pocket costs for doctor visits and treatment. Okay, so an average person, according to Fidelity, when they did some of the research, is someone who turned 65 in 2023 is going to need to have about $157,000 saved to pay for healthcare over the course of retirement, something that you definitely want to take into consideration when you're doing your budgeting. And also think of it this way. Again, it's very hard to take somebody and just make it an average and lump everybody together because everybody's health concerns are different. And this is what I also talk about in some of the other videos, is that you need to do your own self-assessment where you sit down and you talk about your own health journey, where you are today, and where do you think you're going to be in the next 5 to 10 years? Because for many retirees, your healthcare expenses are going to increase as you move through your golden years. Right. So the second part of your golden years is most likely going to be more expensive, which means that you're going to have to adjust your budget, where right now you're budgeting maybe a certain percentage right now. And then down the road, let's say 10 or 15 years down the road, that percentage is going to increase because your health is going to change. Next question is, setting aside some money for emergencies now will help steer you towards a more secure retirement. What do you think? The answer is 100% true. I am a big believer on having rainy day funds. Some of the financial advisors say you need to have about 3 months. I strongly encourage you to think about having at least 6 months of rainy day emergency funds. And all this is going to do is going to give you an amazing peace of mind knowing that if something happens, if a furnace breaks in your home and you have to put in a whole new heating and air conditioning system, it's going to cost you at least $10,000. You have that money saved in your emergency fund. That's what the fund is for. If your car breaks down, if something else happens and you fall and you have some out-of-pocket health expenses, that's what the emergency fund is there for. So it is never too late to start saving. And even for in retirement, you need to have an emergency fund with the fund that you don't touch. And there's a couple of great ways that, of course, you can do that, where we talk about it. So if you got your tax refund, put that money in your emergency fund if you don't have it set up yet. If your fund is not up to 6 months, then it's time to make sure and focus on filling it up as much as possible. If you are using a credit card that pays you cash back on everyday expenses and things that you purchase, take that money and then put that aside for your emergency fund. I think that's one of my favorite passive ways of saving for something. It could be your emergency fund. It could be for vacation. It could be a graduation gift for your grandson. Just think about those as opportunities, is that where you use a credit card, the credit card should be rewarding you for using that service. So that cashback option, 1, 2, or 5%, depending on the card that you're using, is going to be your backup plan for a few different things like an emergency fund. Also, to add a couple of other things is that you still have time to build your nest egg with compounding interest in investment returns. So think of it this way. People say, you know what, I'm 50, I'm 55 years old, and I don't have anything saved. I don't want you to get discouraged, because you can always start and you can get there with some really targeted and focused planning. So starting at the age of 50, the IRS allows you to accelerate your savings with catch-up contributions. So talk to your accountant about that. Higher limits than for younger workers on how much you can put into your IRA, your individual retirement account, or workplace plans such as 401ks. So if that is something that you may want to do, maybe this is something that's giving you anxiety and it's on your mind, then definitely talk to your accountant to see what you can put in place now, because right now we are starting the second quarter of the year. Now is the time to put these things in place for your 2024 tax year. Okay. The next one is the tax burden on your retirement income dividends depends on where you live. So is that true or false? The tax burden on your retirement income depends on where you live. The answer is yes, that is true. And that is something that I always talk to my clients about, because a lot of them worry and they say, well, I want to move to a state that doesn't have income tax, or it has a lower income tax. And we talk about not just that, we talk about some other things, because state tax policies do vary greatly. And what you want to consider is your Social Security going to be taxed? What about your pension? What about your military retirement pay if you're a veteran? What does that look like? And it's interesting to see. If I'll give you an example here on the East Coast. For example, if you live in New Jersey, the income tax is around 10%. If you live in PA, the state tax is 3.07%. Right? So New Jersey's taxes pensions, but Pennsylvania does not. So when we're talking with clients in terms of, do I want to move back to New Jersey because that's where I lived before, or am I going to stay in PA? I want them to take not just one or two things, but a bigger picture into consideration. It's not just about taxing your income. It's about other considerations in that big pie of the planning that are going to be important to you. And the last question is, there are things that you can do every day to get you closer to your retirement goal. And that is absolutely a yes, right? Whether you're keeping a budget, or you're going to up your savings, or you are doing some research, every day you should be able to do something to help you move that needle forward. And then, this is why I do these lives and I do the videos to help you and kind of take the information that you hear on social media, that you see on the news, and make it more relevant and easier to understand, and also to help you understand that it's all doable. However, you just have to take action. You have to do something every day. So that was a fun quiz. So that's what I have for you. And now what I want to talk about is, what are some of the things that you should be doing this month? Whether you are planning for retirement and you're still working, or you are already retired and enjoying your golden years. There are some things that you should be doing every month that pertain to your finances, that pertain to your own health, that pertain to the health of your home if you're a homeowner. So this is what I share with my clients when we talk on a regular basis, and I call in to check in to see if they need any help. So the things that I recommend that you do for the month of April, because we're getting ready to wrap up. So first of all, you should order one free credit report. As you guys know, you are entitled to one free credit report from each of the agencies per year. That is required by law. So you need to go to annualfreecreditreport.com. It's all one word, annualfreecreditreport.com, and just order one credit report. So pick one. So today you're going to order Equifax. And the goal is, just like you take care of yourself and you see the doctor and you get your annual checkup, you need to do a periodic checkup on your financial health. You need to see what companies are reporting on your credit report. So the month of April is going to be your first report that you're ordering. You're going to print it out, and of course, you're going to save it with today's date on it and which credit agency did you pull it from. And I want you to go through it page by page and make sure that everything is on there is the way it should be, is supposed to be. Because if not, then things need to be corrected. And I can tell you for a fact, from hearing what other clients had to go through to make those corrections, it takes time, it takes effort and determination and a follow-up to get those things corrected. And if you think about it, you're like wondering, well, I don't need to buy another house. Why? How does it matter to you? I can tell you that companies pull your credit periodically to check on your health of your finances on a regular basis. If you want to buy furniture and you need to get credit, they're going to pull your credit. If you need to buy a new car or a used car and you need to borrow, get a loan, they're going to pull your credit. Same thing applies for utilities, for cell phones, and for a lot of other things. So don't discount this. It's not costing you anything, but knowing, making sure that everything is the way it's supposed to be on that report is very, very important. Second thing is, April 21st to 28th is a National Park Week. There are things that are happening. A lot of parks are going to let you in for free. So I encourage you to check it out as something part of the fact that you need to be moving your body every day for at least 30 minutes. So check it out and see what activities that are being planned in a park near you for this particular week. Next up, April is a great month to go ahead and get your central air conditioning serviced in time for the summer. And my suggestion to you is don't wait till May and definitely don't wait till June, because here's what's going to happen. When those ACs are going to be turned on, depending on what part of the country you're at, and your AC is not working, you're going to be calling for emergency service. And so are you and 100 of other people. And then it's going to cost you more money. And then you're going to be sitting and sweating because you cannot get a repair guy out there for the couple of days. So I always tell people, don't wait and be proactive. Get it serviced now. Change out your filter, especially because of the pollen season that is upon us. Get it all done now so that way you're going to be in good shape when the time comes for you to go ahead and do that. And as you know, if you don't have a good recommendation, you can always ask your friends and family and tap into your local resources. But please don't just Google and just see an ad and then use them. Because just because they're advertising does not mean that they're good at what they do. You always want to ask for trusted recommendations. I always give resources to my clients, and I always tell them, call me. Whatever you need, call me, and then I'll either put you in the right direction or I'll provide you the resources that we have. And the last item of action I have for you is to finish your first quarter maintenance items. First quarter is January through March. All of my clients get a maintenance checklist postcard. I'm going to link it for you under this video so that way you can download it yourself, hang it on your fridge, hang it on your office, and make sure that you get done the first quarter items. It's an easy way not to have to worry and think about what is it that I need to do. If you are still a homeowner, your home is the biggest investment that you own. It is your retirement savings plan for a lot of us. So I want to make sure that you're taking care of your most important investment. And that's where the maintenance checklist is going to come in. I'm also going to link my life expectancy for major things in the house. So that way you have an idea. And we talk about that a lot, making sure that you are not waiting until something breaks or it becomes a big issue. Make sure that because once you follow the maintenance checklist plan, you're going to realize that some things may need repair. And of course, my suggestion to you always is to fix it when things are small and the issue is small before it gets too big and very expensive. So I'm going to link both of these under the video. All right. So now that we talked about things to do for April, I want to give you some food for thought on pre-retirement. So pre-retirement is the time where you are kind of counting down your time, and you can see those golden years in your window ahead of you. It doesn't seem to be too far away. It's like right there. And I want to give you some suggestions on how to do it and some interesting tips and hacks to help you. So right now we're going to focus on those of you that are a couple years away and you can taste it and you can smell it and you can see it. It's almost there. Okay, so pre-retirement is a trial run that can help you make the right call on where and when and how, like all of those things that you can get answered. And this is where I'm going to ask you some questions. I want you to write them down, because if you haven't thought about them yet, now is a good time to do that. Okay, so the first one is, let's talk about your aspirations. So I want you to think about, what does that retirement look like to you? What do you want to do? What you don't want to do? Where do you want to live? What does that look like? Who's going to be around you? Like, when I talk to my clients, I'm like, give me your dream. Share with me, what does that look like? And that's exactly what I'm asking you to write for your retirement plan. And is this going to be, and also ask yourself important things like, do I want to live where I'm at right now, or do I want to move? Do I want to be near my family? And which family? Is it going to be your kids, or is it going to be your siblings? Things like that. So having that written down, don't keep it in your head and don't think about it. I want you to write it down. All of the things that are important, and circle those things that are more important than others, because that's how you're going to come up with your puzzle, and that's how you're going to put it together and have one cohesive plan. Okay. And when I call that plan as your box of your dreams and goals, because that is what I'm going to be referring to quite often, is what does your box look like? What are those things that you're putting in there that are super important to you? What are those standards and criteria and parameters there? Because some things that you can say, you know what, these things I'm not willing to negotiate on. Those are a must. And then you're always going to have some things that I recommend that you have in there that are like a rubber band. Well, it could go one way, it could go the other. It can be stretched. So think about those things. So you're going to have your major rocks, and then you're going to have some glass balls, and then you're going to be able to kind of pour some sand in between of some other things that are going to be flexible. And you may say, you know what, it's great that we have it, but if we don't, it's okay. So that's kind of what we're talking about. Are your aspirations. Okay. And again, it's great for you to see what other people are doing, but I don't want you to get hung up on, well, they're planning this. Well, that's their life. That is their box that they're planning. It's not yours. So focus on the things that are important to you, or things that you like to do. Okay. Then we're going to talk about actually designing your test run. And that's what this test driving your retirement is. We're actually going to put some of the plans that you're thinking you're going to implement during your retirement, but we're actually going to implement them now, and we're going to test drive them, and we're going to see if we like it. Just like when you decide that you want to buy a car and you're trying to decide between a Ford, a Cadillac, and a Toyota. What are you going to do? How are you going to know if you like it? And which car are you going to like best? You're going to go and test drive each of them. Then you're going to make a decision which one is going to meet all of the things that you want to have in the car, right? Well, why can't you do the same thing and test drive your retirement, the things that you think you want to do and to have, and where you want to be in the retirement? And that's the idea that I want you to kind of be open to today. And I want you to think about it differently. So that's the game plan. Okay. So if you're still working, that also means that you may want to either take some time off or start planning some of your activities towards the things that you want to do in the retirement. So if you have certain hobbies that maybe you want to implement that is on your list, the fun things, right? That's part of your fun things bucket for your retirement. Maybe you want to go see a Broadway show. Maybe you want to do some volunteering. You want to do some mentoring, things like that. I want you to test drive them now and see what is around you that you can start doing now as part of your test drive. Okay. One of the cool things that I think came out of the COVID is the ability to have a remote work. So find out if this is something that may be an option for you. I know a client who ended up being able to do this. She wanted to test drive her retirement and she ended up going to Mexico for a period of time. She still worked because she was able to have the remote option, but she really wanted to see, because she had this idea of living in Mexico, because actually it is one of the top 10 countries where retirees pick and choose to potentially move to. She said, well, I don't know if I'm going to like it. So what are we going to do? We're going to test drive it. And she decided to do it before actually retiring. And the key to kind of truly getting into it and figuring things out is not to stay in a hotel or a resort, but actually to live in a real environment where you have to cook and you have to do laundry. And this is where the suggestion is for you to rent an Airbnb or get an apartment through VRBO and stay there for at least a few weeks to kind of get a feel for things. So that's one. Next, we're talking about, of course, engaging in diverse activities that pique your interest. So we talked about that. And one of the most important things that I think is important to do for the test driving is test driving your budget. The budget, it's the big thing, the foundation of everything that we always worry about is how much money are we going to have in retirement? How much money is going to cost for us to live in our retirement? Is that money going to last us for the remainder of our golden years? Is the big question that a lot of people want answers. Well, let's buckle down. If you do not have your retirement budget, I encourage you to watch my live from April 16th, where we really dove in very, very specifically in each bucket of the budgeting as your foundation to help you come up with some really specific actionable steps and actually come up with that budget. And the link to the budget sheet, I'm also going to link it here as well for you, because if you don't have one started, now is a good time to do that. Okay. So how are we going to actually test our retirement budget? There are some important buckets. Some major things that are in your budget is going to be your housing expenses, your utilities, your insurance, your food. And then you also have a couple of things that are like fun and travel and hobbies, which should still be part of your budget, because it's important to do things that you enjoy and things that, things that make you happy and bring you joy. So get started on your budget if you haven't, but if you do have it, that's great. So some of the things that also think about is that you have your salary coming in right now. And when you're going to be retired, do you still plan on maybe working part-time? It could be the same job you have now, but you're going to downsize to maybe working 2 to 3 days. And that's perfectly okay, as long as you like what you're doing. That's important. And if not, are you going to pick up some kind of part-time work, right? I have a great story that I can share with you. Is I had clients that retired, and what they always wanted to do, the husband was, he always wanted to work for Disney. They're big Disney fans ever since their kids were small. They used to go to Disney all the time. And when they retired, they said that they were going to move down to Orlando area. They were going to buy a home in the 55 plus community that they built. And the husband said, I'm going to go work for Disney. It was like I could almost see it, having that stuff on his vision board. And he did. He actually did. So they retired, they moved, and he got a part-time job with Disney, and he worked at Epcot. I still remember seeing his pictures of his white shorts and the red top, which was their uniform at that time. And the cool thing is that he never knew what kind of work he was going to do. Every day when he came in, he was one of those important people that filled in for people that got sick or couldn't make it to work that day. So every day he had a different job around that same theme park. So it could be, picking up trash. It could be working in the gift shop, or it could be doing some other things. So he loved it. He worked part-time, and he ended up working there for quite a number of years. And when he retired, he actually ended up earning another pension from Disney because he worked there whatever the required number of years that was at that time. That was part of the benefits package. So I used to love hearing those stories because it was fun to see someone who enjoyed working so much, but he did it on his terms, and it still contributed to his budget and made him happy, right? He had the social interactions, he had the income that was supporting his budget, he had a schedule, and he had fun. So those are like all of the little things that cover to make him happy in his retirement is what he did. So I loved hearing different stories that he used to come home and kind of talk about. So we're going to figure that out. If you're going to work part-time, then kind of put that aside, because you're not going to be able to test that. But you're going to say, well, my income is going to be from Social Security is going to be $1,500 a month. And if I'm going to keep my job, but I'm only going to work a couple of days a week, it's going to be $1,000 or something like that, or $2,000 a month. So you add those things together, and that is your income for the budget, which means that is the max amount of money that you can spend. If you want, open up a separate checking account and put that money there, and then use that as your main source of money to pay for your expenses out of the buckets that we just talked about that are part of your retirement budget. And I think that is the most important test drive that you can do, because worrying about finances in retirement is the number one thing that people always talk about when they're in the process of making those plans. All right, so we talked about those. And of course, also don't forget about your healthcare costs, okay? Fidelity did a study that I already mentioned to you. You're probably going to need quite a bit of money in your lifetime. So do some estimating based on what you need right now and what you might need in the next couple of years, and add that as well in your budget, okay? The next one I thought was very interesting when I was reading this article is talking and assessing your relationships. And when I read that, I immediately thought about another clients that I have that are a couple. So they're 71 this year, and he's still working. And I talked to the wife, because we have these conversations. My relationships with my clients last for years, and I'm very happy about that. And that's what I was asking her. I was like, so I said, you guys are getting ready to retire. Like, what are you going to do when you retire? Because I automatically start asking these questions to kind of get people to start thinking about it, because a lot of people don't. They just don't realize that they should be thinking about these things. And she told me, she said, so she's not working. And she periodically takes care of their granddaughter that is 2 years old. And she said, you know what? She said, I don't want Mike to stop working, because I think I'm going to go crazy if he's going to stay at home, because he doesn't really have a lot of hobbies, and I'm not sure what he's going to do. So right now I'm actually good with him working, because then he has the structure and the schedule, and he actually goes somewhere and gives us space, right? So he leaves the house and then gives them space to be away from each other. So she does her things like gardening, and then he's working. So I want you to also realize that retirement is going to have a major impact on your relationships with your spouse and your family and friends, okay? You may spend more time together, and for some people that may not be okay when you're all in the same space. I know of another couple who, so her husband works for Amazon and he works at nights, and she works during the day. So I was helping her with selling her mom's house. And that's what she was talking about, that we love having our time away from each other, because then that gives us an opportunity to explore our own interests and hobbies. And then we come together and do things together. So think about those things, because if you're going to be sitting in the house together and you never did that because you both worked or your husband worked for 30 years, it's going to be a major change that you may not realize how that is going to kind of, feel. So have those candid conversations about the expectations and boundaries. And you can also schedule regular date nights with your spouse and partners, and just kind of think about how many interactions you want to have with your friends. Do you want to keep going the same thing you're doing now? Do you want more from them? Or maybe you may want less, right? That's definitely your decision to make. Taking stock of your emotional readiness. I thought that was interesting. Pay attention to your emotional state during any test run. Keep a journal, right? A journal about how you're feeling when you're going through the test run. Are you happy with your results? Or are there some things that maybe you may want to change? So write all those things down. And remember, your first thing that you think about, that first impulse, your gut is going to be the most important one. So write it down. Don't overthink it. Don't overshadow it, and don't file it away. Definitely write it down. Okay. Bouts of angst or boredom could be signs that you need to adjust your anticipated retirement routine to better suit your personality. And maybe if you have enthusiasm and happiness, which is going to indicate that you're on the right track. So kind of keep track of how you're feeling, what you're doing for your test run. And then the next item is very important. I think it's the most important out of everything. As you're going through this test drive, the goal is for you to reflect on how it's going, refine, and then reevaluate. Use that rubber band that stretches back and forth and say, you know what? This is what's working great. This is what's not working so good. And this is not working at all. I didn't think it was going to be like that, right? But you didn't know that until you actually did the test drive. So that's why it's super important. So think about it, write some of the things down, and also be honest with yourself about what seemed less ideal and what wasn't working. Okay. This way, when the time comes and you say, hey, I am going to have the fireworks and I'm ready to retire, you're going to be fully prepared. So this is why I thought that having this test drive is super important. And you know what, too? It doesn't have to be a year before your retirement, because I can hear you asking yourself, well, when should I do it? When does it seem right to you? If you are in the process and you're not sure about your budget, you can test your budget anytime. Come up with a plan and say, okay, I have this amount of money that I think I can live on during the retirement. Can I actually do that? And test drive it for a few months and see what happens. So this is what I have for you in terms of test driving. Tell me what you think about it. If you're going to do it, let me know, because I would love to hear your stories about how you're going to implement it. And then afterwards, tell me what happened and if you had to make changes. So I would love to hear your stories about it. All right. Now, I also want to mention a couple of other things based on some of the conversations that I recently had with some of my clients who are in their 60s, and they're trying to make a decision, should I or shouldn't I? So the one piece of advice that a few of the people of my clients that are already retired, they suggested is that not to do anything drastic in your year one of retirement. So once you're retired and then you're like, okay, I'm officially retired, do not do anything drastic, because it's going to take you time to adjust to being retired. Think about it. You're going from 80 miles an hour on the work schedule. We're trying to squeeze stuff in and having a day or two off, to not having to work. It's a complete 180-degree change. So don't think that you're going to be able to adjust literally in a matter of like a snap of your fingers. It's not going to happen. So you need to give yourself grace and time to kind of adjust, breathe, and decide for yourself, do I like this, or do I want to get some things moving? Do I may want to get a job? But don't just act emotionally and impulsively on that. Just wait. Just give yourself some time to relax, rest, and then absorb. So that's one. And two, a lot of the decisions that you're going to be making, whether it's before retirement or during your golden years, are also based on your personality. You probably have heard experts talk about it. And personality is super, super important. And there's nothing wrong with you being one or the other. It's just who you are. So someone who is outgoing and loves social interactions is going to want that and crave that continuing going into the retirement. Yet there's somebody who is an introvert who loves the peace and quiet, and they just want to read a book and they're happy to stay at home. And that's okay too. And there are some people who are drivers in their working life. They always have to keep going and run and do things. They're going to approach their retirement planning differently than other people as well. They may want to have a part-time job because they don't want to sit still and be idle. They may want to start a business, which is perfectly okay, or maybe mentor others. So think about those things and also decide on what personality you are. And if you're not sure, I encourage you to actually take a personality test and figure that out for yourself, because I guarantee you it's going to make things a lot simpler when you are understanding who you are and how are you wired. That's just what you are. You have your strength and you have your weaknesses. And if you're using your strength to the strengths, it's going to help you with your planning. So I will link a test. It's called a DISC profile test. I will link it under this video as well, so that way you can check it out. Okay. My other thing is that everyone thinks differently and has different good ideas. This is why I'm always talking to clients and asking their perspectives and their opinions, because you have a one view and perspective that is based on your upbringing, on your experience, on your culture, on all of those things combined with how you look at the world and how you do things. And other people are looking at it from a completely different perspective and direction. And sometimes asking, what do you think, or how would you approach this, can really give you some good feedback and a thought process to help you in your own decision-making process. So those are the things that I wanted to kind of share that pertain to perhaps planning, or maybe if you're just starting a couple of years of your retirement, of your golden years. Now, let me jump into some of the questions that you guys sent me that I absolutely love. And I'm going to answer a couple of them, and we're going to have fun about that. Let me find it. So one gentleman, one of the questions that was asked is, how do you figure out where to live in retirement? So that was one of the questions. And one answer that I found from someone else a little while ago, I wrote it down, and this is what I want to share with you actually. So the one piece of advice, which I already shared with you, is that don't do anything for a year after you retire. Maybe you think that you want to move now, or after a while, maybe you don't. So that also pertains to, where are we going to live? Vacations are definitely a good idea, because if you want to try and kind of figure out if you do want to move, then going on vacation is the best thing. But here's where I thought was an amazing advice that I never thought of, that I want to share with you. So when you go on vacation, rent an Airbnb, right? So you can rent a whole house or an apartment for at least a month in the place that you want to visit, but don't go when it's beautiful. Don't go in the summer. You need to go there during the worst season, not the best, but the worst. So if you hate hot weather, then go in the summer. If you can't stand lots of darkness and rain, go in the winter, right? Because it's always great and easy to manage where you live in the area when the weather is fine, right? Because we all love sunshine and it's all great. But how are you going to manage in the place that you choose when it's dark and it's dreary and it's depressing? So going somewhere to figure it out and live there when it's the dreary season and say, you know what, I'm okay with that. That is, I think, is really, really great advice. So the example that he gave is like, I live in Seattle. People come here in the summer and all the time, and they absolutely love it. It's warm, but it's not really hot. It's not humid, and the area is gorgeous, and it's like light 16 hours of the day. And then they experience the winter. It's light 8 hours of the day, and many days it's cloudy. It rains some. It's not snowy, but it's dark. If you were talking about moving here, I would tell you to visit in winter to see if you really like it, or if you just experienced it when the city is at its best. So I think that's a great advice. A few other things that I like, that I always share with people, is that when you do travel and you want to experience the area, go sit where there's lots of people and just sit, people watch. I love people watching. It really is going to give you a perspective on what the areas are about, and just see how you feel. Remember, trust your gut. So if you are smiling, because sometimes you look around, you're like, this is the place I want to spend my days in. This is great. I could just sit and watch and have my coffee, read a book, and just talk to people and just watch people go by. And that's a good place, right? So use your gut as your judgment. And next, think about important things that I always tell people. Let's talk about your big rocks when you're trying to make a decision where to live in the retirement. What about your family? Is your family close by? Do you want to be close to them? Are we talking about your kids? Where are they? I know a lot of clients that have their kids all in different parts of the country. They're all over different states. I have somebody that is living in the East Coast, in New Jersey, and she has one daughter that lives in Connecticut, and then the other one lives in Florida. So she's like, Olga, I'm not sure how to make that decision because I want to be close to both of them, that it's just impossible to do. So that's not an easy decision to make. I get it. But just take some time to think about it and write some of your thoughts down. Another big one with all of us is weather. If you don't want to be where it's cold, then let's talk about which southern states make sense to you. And everybody automatically thinks Florida. And I can tell you, you know what? Florida is not that hot anymore in terms of your best pick, because people are like, it's hot. Their summer is what they call it a winter, because everybody hibernates in the summertime. And I can tell you, having conversations with quite a few clients that I helped move down there, is that the cost of living has really skyrocketed. Their insurance, their homeowners insurance, their car insurance, the cost of some of the utilities are not what they used to be. And also quite a few people moved there during COVID as well. So is it going to be crowded and overpopulated? And is the infrastructure going to hold it? So Florida may be great, but it may not be so great for others as well. And then also thinking about friends. Friends are important. Your kids are going to go on and have their own lives and then create their own households and have their own kids and their own friends. But you having your own social support and circle is extremely, extremely important. So where are your friends? And also have this conversation with your friends and find out, where are they going? What are their plans? What are they thinking? This way you can still have your circle and you guys can take into consideration what everybody else is doing. Another important thing is that if you've traveled throughout the US is huge. This is not like we all live in a small country called Texas, and you can only go in so many different areas and that's it. United States is huge. It takes 6 hours to fly from East Coast to the West Coast. And then it's probably the same number of hours going from Maine to Florida, as an example. It's huge. And I can tell you that every time I go to Texas, and I go to Texas once a year for a conference to learn and get better at what I do, I feel like I'm in a different country. I go to Austin and architecture is different. The grass is different. Everything is different. And I walk around and look at everything. And I love looking at different architecture and different nature, but it's so, so different. Same country, but it's a different state. So when you're trying to make a decision on, should I be moving to a different state, it's even more important to go and visit that to see how do you feel comfortable with such a big difference. People are different. Accents are different. Grocery stores are different. Everything is different. So think about those things. And if you want to get to know and get more information, the best way to do it is to talk to locals. You can join local Facebook groups to ask questions. When you're visiting, go sit in cafes and talk to people. Find some senior centers and go visit and talk to them and say, hey, how do you like living here? And also, what don't you like about living here? Okay. And the most important thing that when we talk about trying to figure this out is, first of all, the advice of not doing anything drastic in the first year, I think, is genius. And the second point that I want to, again, bring you back to emotional versus rational decisions. Do not make emotional decisions based on short-term stuff, based on how you're feeling. And what I'm talking about here is a lot of that has to do with what's going on in the economy. Is it the year when the elections are happening? How is the stock market doing? Well, stock market is jumping up and down, whether it has coffee or not, every day. Every day it's going to be going back and forth. And it's just crazy. If you're watching the stock market and you're watching the fluctuations of your portfolio, you're going to drive yourself crazy. And if you're making emotional decisions based on what's happening in the moment, it really is a bad thing to do. You need to stick to making rational decisions based on your box of goals and dreams that we talked about earlier today. Your box is what's most important. So what is that going to do to get you there? It's a longer outlook on things. And if you look at the stock market longer term, you will see it's doing this, but then guess what? It keeps climbing and going up. And that is the most important vision that we all need to have. Another question that was sent that I loved, that I just wanted to share with you is one gentleman posted, he's like, hey, I just want to do a retirement check. Here's where I'm at. I'm approaching the end of my second year of retirement after 32 years in the corporate world, and I am still decompressing. Right. So this is the guy that is now 2 years in. He's like, I do all the usual stuff I used to have to cram into a weekend, but now I only do it at my pace. I also fish most days, read the books I wanted to get into, and I'm spending a month in Japan this summer, which is on my bucket list. And when my son heads off to college in the fall, we plan on more spontaneous getaways as well. Life is good. And somebody else replied and said, and that's what I want you to get a feel for. What are the other people are doing and how are they doing it, right? To get an idea so that way it can help you with your own planning. We are in our 60s. My wife has been retired for 10 years, and I'm in the process of transitioning from my professional practice to retirement. Last year, we took our first ever real vacation, not solely a visit to relatives, not a church mission or a trip or a convention. We went to Italy and Paris for 2 weeks, mostly staying with family, but also doing lots of touristy stuff. We came to the conclusion that we are not really interested all that much in travel for its own sake. I have a small number of Civil War battlefields that I would like to go to, Gettysburg, Vicksburg, but no other travel destinations. There are some other trips that I would like to take, but for the purpose of visiting friends who live in those areas. I'm glad that we took that trip to Europe last year so that we did not develop any contrived ideas about spending a lot of our retirement in travel. So see, they experienced it. They're like, yep, it's not so much for me, but I'm glad I went. I can check that off my list, and off I go. After 9 years, it doesn't really seem like retirement. It's just the norm. Since retiring, I have been active in several charitable organizations, traveled to Haiti several years ago when it was still safe, acceptable. To build a school and orphanage, I traveled to Alaska, helping build a community center and local volunteer through the Red Cross. My significant other has been a part of these efforts as well, and we have developed several close friends and associates with these efforts. Also enjoy our children and grandchildren, traveling to see them at least once a month, probably more often than this. Money-wise, we saved and planned for retirement, so now it's sort of difficult to spend that money we collected for retirement. Have to keep reminding ourselves that retirement is what we saved forward towards it. So we're there, and we're going to enjoy it. So we're going on a cruise next month. So I loved reading these stories from feedback on people saying, hey, retirement check, where you're at, and what does that look like to you? And a few other tips that I want to leave with you is something that a client of mine, Cheryl, brought up to me that is super important to her now that she's retired. And I do see her on a regular basis. She's a wonderful lady. She's super psyched and happy to be volunteering on a regular basis. And volunteering can be a million different things. So I said, you know what? Let's talk a little bit about that just for a few minutes, so that way you can think about this as an opportunity, right? Because a lot of the times we think about volunteering, we're like, what does that mean? Like, what does that look like? So let me kind of open up a world to you, okay? So what volunteering gig has given you the most rewarding social connections or intellectual satisfaction? Have you guys ever thought about the fact that when you volunteer, not only is it going to also bring you joy because you're doing something you enjoy, but also it's going to give you those social connections because you are seeing people that have similar interests as you. So when folks like me mention that they're bored and lonely in retirement, it's very common for other folks to recommend volunteering. And I'm up for it. I have volunteered with a bicycle repair nonprofit, a theater, a school, an educational program, an animal shelter, and I have yet to come across an opportunity that provides any social connections or satisfying intellectual challenge. I usually feel kind of like a temp, the person who the real employees ignore while going through the menial tasks that nobody else wants to do, and there's no opportunity to get to know other volunteers. And I get that this kind of service can feed the soul, but I also need the social connections, and I need to feel like I'm needed because of what I'm good at, not just because I have 2 feet and 2 hands to help out with work. So maybe I'm volunteering in the wrong places, or maybe I'm asking for the wrong thing from volunteering. And what is your experience? So that is the question. And I love the fact that this gentleman mentioned so many interesting things. And I think that sometimes it may look like we are not felt important or needed. But I guarantee you that whatever the time that you give to these organizations, people certainly appreciate. And you know what? If some people don't that work there, that's their prerogative. That is their view, and that is their perspective, and it doesn't have to be yours as well. So I kind of invite you to think about what can you do? What can you volunteer at? What are you good at? What do you enjoy? What are some of your hobbies? I talk to clients that are truly amazing, and I'm fascinated by the experience that they had in their life journey, what they have accomplished, in not just in work, but also with other things that they were passionate about. You can teach gardening. You can volunteer at the animal shelter. You can foster animals. Think about maybe a charity that speaks to your heart. They always are looking for volunteers to do different things, maybe plan charity events, organize, collect donations, things like that. Also, if you have been a professional and you love being in that same environment, check out SCORE. It's a Service Corps of Retired Executives. It's the largest mentoring program in the United States. And there you can mentor people on having a small business, on being a real estate investor, on tons of different topics and things that you know you're really good at and you actually enjoy doing while you were working. So why not take this wisdom and knowledge that you have and share it with someone else, and then just be amazed at watching them grow. So that is the opportunity. Some other things that were mentioned that I absolutely love that I also want to share with you are these. You can always teach English as a second language. I don't know if you guys know that, but you can actually go to a different country and they will pay you to do that. You can be an ESL teacher in another country. You can volunteer at a food pantry. Another client of mine volunteers at a hospital intensive care unit, and she holds babies. That's what she does. She will hold and rock babies to help them feel like they're loved and needed and have that warmth to help them heal faster. I just found this to be just so amazing and fascinating. Okay. Next up, if there's nothing out there of a group that you're looking for, that you really love and have passion for, then you need to create one. Don't wait for somebody else to do it. You create one, you put it up on meetup.com, which is meetup.com, and you go to town. You get other people that are going to be drawn to you, and you have weekly meetings, or maybe it's a hiking or walking group. You create this program around what you're interested in and how often you want to do it. And I guarantee you're going to watch it grow, and you're going to get other people that are going to be attracted to the same thing that is fun to you, is fun to them, and you're going to grow another social circle. There was a videos that I watched on social media, and I don't remember because it's been a little while, but I just thought about it when I was thinking about my notes for today. She used to post videos of her cleaning gravestones. She would go to the cemeteries and some of the older stones that were just completely abandoned, and she would just take the special solution and she would clean the gravestones, and you can see on there who it was and what were the years of their life. And then she would try and do some research and then share in the video who these people were. I found this to be just so amazing, and she was so passionate about it, and it was a completely volunteering project. Others I know help people with genealogy research. If you ever thought about kind of digging deeper into your ancestors, maybe they weren't, they came here at a certain part of this century, last century, that is a pretty cool thing to dig and kind of start building that tree. So some people do that. And I also know people that visit residents in elder care, memory care, assisted living communities, because as you can imagine, a lot of those people are alone. Maybe they don't have any family members, and having company, especially when they're in the community like that, is, I think, the most important thing that you can provide to them. So I wanted to give you some ideas on volunteering and how volunteering can mean a million different things depending on what makes sense to you, what matters to you, and what your personality is in terms of how you show up in the world. So, important things to remember as we kind of wrap up our time together is that when you are in the process of planning your retirement, or trying to figure things out, or you just retired and you got all this information that being thrown at you, because as you know, when you go into Google and you type in your question, you get 500 pages of tons of things on each page, and you're like, I don't even know where to start, right? And sometimes we feel lost. I think a few important things for you to remember that I jotted down is, first of all, it's okay not to have everything figured out. It's going to take time for you to say, you know what, this feels right. This makes sense to me. That's one. Two, it's okay to have doubts, because sometimes you feel that it's the right decision one day, and then the next day you say, you know what, I'm not sure if it's going to work. And that's okay to make changes. The next thing is also important to understand that other people, just like you, are going through the same doubts and worry and anxiety every day, because they are thinking about the same things. They're worried about their retirement. They're not sure where to start. They don't know if the money is going to last. A lot of people are going through the same thing. And I think sometimes knowing that you're not alone, you're not the only one going through this, is also really helpful to know. So the best thing to do, in my opinion, it doesn't matter where you are in your process and what are you worried about, is just focusing on doing something every day. You make one positive impact every day. Whatever that impact is whatever it is that you need to do in your own journey and your own plan. It could be because you need to declutter, because you need to sell your house, because your house is the biggest investment that you have. Just start with one drawer. Start with one cabinet or one corner of the room. It does not have to be anything complicated. Just one. You can put away $20, $50, whatever it is that you feel comfortable with this week towards your retirement, towards your savings, or towards your rainy day fund. That is a step forward. Reviewing your dreams and goals. Remember the box that I mentioned to you? Take a look at it and ask yourself, does everything here still make sense to me? It makes me happy and I'm looking forward to it. Because if not, then it's time to maybe erase something and add something. That's why I love the idea of using a pencil, especially when you're trying to come up with a big game plan like your retirement. Okay? And the goal is really to just move the needle forward every day, one foot in front of the other. One small step ahead is really what is going to get you where you're going. It's just one step at a time. Don't think of that big mountain that is ahead of you. Just think about one step, how are you climbing little by little, because it's one day at a time and then making one progress at a time. So that's what I have to share with you today. I hope that you enjoyed it. Don't forget, a new video is coming out this Friday, and it's going to be a good one. And of course, I hope to see you again next Tuesday on another live, where we're going to talk about more things like retirement to help you live your best life and have the best retirement ever. So thank you for joining me. Unless anybody else has any comments or questions that you want to add now, we're going to sign off so that way you guys can have a great rest of your day. So let me know if there's anything else that you want to chat about. All right, it sounds like everybody is good. I hope I gave you good food for thought, and we will see you next time. Thank you so much.